Oh man, my very first video game.
It's going to be great to play so many games over so many years of my life. I bet it's going to be forever until I find my favourite game series.
You'd be wrong about that, you dumb motherfucker. You're about to experience your favourite fucking game series right fucking now. Experience a brand new fucking 3D engine, brand new stealth gameplay, with an awesome soundtrack, fucking awesome visuals, and a great fucking story. Man, this game's great.
Play this.
Snake, answer me! Snake! Snake!
That's one way to start it.
Well, you know, I thought we needed some flair.
Do.
Greetings everyone, buddy, and welcome back to... You know what? I think it's time for a change of scenery. That's better. Needs a bit more posters of mine, but I think this will do. Greetings everyone everybody, and welcome back to Reviewtrespectives. And now it might not seem like it for you guys, but it's been a hell of a long time since I did the last video. There's been a bunch of changes since then. For one, I live here now. Second, the world wasn't on fire when I did the last video. And I also did another thing. I did a thing. Now go. Alrighty, today is going to be one hell of a treat of a video to do. Not only is this game very important to me, but it also has recently celebrated its 22nd birthday.
In the mystical year of 1998, it was ripe full of releases: Half-Life 1, The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, Banjo-Kazooie, Pokemon Red and Blue, Tekken 3, Panzer Dragoon Saga, Resident Evil 2, Crash Warped, Abe's Exodus, and probably the most important thing released into the world.
Me! This was my birth year, and it also happened to be one of the most influential years in gaming, and it brought us so many of those amazing games, and also the game we're going to be talking about today. It probably is one of the most important games ever, because this is the game that changed my life.
And I guess I should give a little bit of a warning. If any of you are thinking of getting into the Metal Gear series, understand that this is coming from the mind of a dude who wanted to be a film director first.
Understand that this is a series full of story, conspiracies, political commentary. You've got to understand and grasp the fact that story is going to be a big thing in this series.
Alrighty, now with that out of the way.
Now, I wasn't kidding at the start of this video. My brother really did hand me the controller when I was like 7, and I walked straight into that infrared sensor, and I died pretty quickly after that. A harsh place to start my Metal Gear journey, sure. Especially with the fact that it was my second game I had ever played. A harsh place to start, sure, and it was a definite far cry from the energy I was getting from Mario 64.
Despite this, I was determined and went forward with it, watching cutscenes and codec calls that I wasn't following at all.
I was like 6 or 7, give me a break.
I went forward until I beat it. I always got the bad ending, mind you, and I always had my brother do the infrared laser section and the Raven tank fight, but I kept playing and playing until I got better and was eagerly awaiting the next Metal Gear game.
But now I'm getting way ahead of myself. I may or may not have a heavy nostalgic bias to this game, but I still have to review it properly like I would any other, so with that, let's dive into the history lesson for Metal Gear Solid.
So while Metal Gear 1 and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake were only ever sold on the MSX in Japan to critical success, the West had both Metal Gear and Snake's Revenge on the NES. While definitely not being anywhere related to each other, the MSX and the NES counterparts succeeded in helping the people be aware of this newer series, where it wasn't always full frontal action like Contra was, but a more methodical, stealthy approach to things. It achieved its goal of making people aware of the name Metal Gear. Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake was released in 1990 onto the MSX2, quickly recognized as a hit, being voted number 1 on the top 30 best-selling MSX games list at MSX Magazine. Holy shit, that was one take. It was a success, and this time Hideo Kojima was already planning on a sequel, instead of coming up with the basic premise of Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake after hearing about Snake's Revenge on a train ride.
This third Metal Gear game was originally going to be designed and released on the 3DO. Talk about a bullet dodged on that one.
Which leads me to talking about Policenauts, a cinematic graphic adventure game which was also written, designed and directed by Hideo Kojima for the 3DO. It was a hit in Japan, and it had a whole cast of characters, but the most important one was a character named Meryl Silverberg, a tomboyish type who once worked for a group named Foxhound and shows a more soft, feminine side when hanging around a character named Dave.
Obviously, this was the original basis for Meryl Silverberg, who would later be seen in Metal Gear Solid. But that's not the only Metal Gear reference in Policenauts. There's a bar called the Solid Snake, and there's also an Outer Heaven sign in there somewhere too.
Shortly after the release of Policenauts on the 3DO, the console was discontinued, and development for the Metal Gear 3 project was shifted to the PlayStation, the hot new console on the block, kicking ass and taking many names.
The name Metal Gear 3 was quickly done away with due to the fact that not everybody knew about the games, probably due to the fact that they weren't released outside of Japan.
Solid. That was the moniker to be used for Metal Gear from this point forward, not only derived from the series' protag Solid Snake, but also to represent the shift from 2D into the third dimension. Development began proper in 1995, with the goal of making the best PlayStation game ever, aiming for accuracy and realism whilst also making it, well, good. In fact, Kojima went hard in on creating the feel of realism by having him and his team educated by the Huntington Beach SWAT team and taught by weapons expert Motosada Mori. This approach to realism by Kojima was pretty huge, with him stating that if the player isn't tricked into believing that the world is real, then there's no point in making the game. And with that it meant details. Every desk, every nook and cranny is unique in some way, which really beats a copy and paste job from the older style games.
This is where I feel Kojima shines the most. Not only does he write incredible stories, he has a marvellous vision, but this dude rewrote the meaning of the word boundaries. Like, the PlayStation 2, every single time a Metal Gear game was released, it pushed the boundaries, and it continued to do it until the end of the series.
And in 1996 at the Tokyo Game Show and in 1997 at E3, Metal Gear Solid was revealed to the world.
Listen up. This is an extremely sensitive covert operation. You'll be one man against an entire squad of high-tech special ops. They will be armed, and they will be dangerous. If you want to survive, you gotta have brains. You have to be in peak physical condition. You have to have nerves of steel. The fate of the free world is in your hands, soldier. Failure is not an option.
Sir, aren't these tests kinda easy?
Suicide mission.
Man, would you look at these ads? One is a weird-ass comedy skit and one explains nothing except cool shots. I guess that's all was needed back then. A tranquil Alaskan night, so quiet you can barely hear a neck snap. Old gaming ads really were something special, alright.
But eventually the day came, September 3rd, 1998. The release date for Metal Gear Solid.
So, before things begin, at the title screen you can read up on previous ops of the events of the Metal Gear games on the MSX, so if, like me, and probably everybody else in the world, this was your first Metal Gear game, this fills in those missing dots, although there's a few errors in these things, like the misspelling of Holly White as Hori.
I'm not touching that one with a 10-foot pole, and neither should you.
But it's here we find out that after the events of Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake, Snake moved to Alaska, preferably to retire for good this time. Set in 2005, 6 years after the fall of Zanzibar land, the once proud group known as Foxhound has turned into a terrorist faction and has taken over a nuclear disposal facility on Shadow Moses Island in Alaska's Fox Archipelago. With the threat of a nuclear strike if their demands are not met, the 24-hour time limit has already begun when Colonel Roy Campbell sends out the call for help from Solid Snake.
Well, it's actually less a call for help from an old friend and more send guards to make sure you're sat in front of the dude. Which Snake rightfully gets pissed off about.
You see, when you start the game up, not only are you greeted by the iconic Konami startup and a beautifully atmospheric opening cutscene with basic plot setups, you can actually watch the briefing, a small section on the title screen which gives you more context and understanding to you, the player, and it actually does a good job of putting the player in the shoes of Snake. In the briefing, Snake hears all the info on the situation. that the Next Generation Special Forces led by members of Foxhound took over the base run by the Company of Armstech whilst it was having a visit by DARPA Chief Donald Anderson, taking him and Armstech President Kenneth Baker hostage on the island. The former colonel also introduces Snake to a fellow support member, Dr. Naomi Hunter, the chief medical staff of Foxhound. Naomi gives Snake an injection leading to a thing we like to call nanomachines, the hip brand new microorganism robot thingies which is basically magic, ripped off from your favorite D&D campaign. Seriously, this stuff does fucking everything.
It's a combination of nanomachines and an anti-freezing peptide so that your blood and other bodily fluids don't freeze, even at subarctic temperatures.
Nanomachines.
Not just one kind, either. There are different types which will replenish the supply of adrenaline, nutrition, and sugar in your bloodstream.
Now I don't have to worry about food.
I also put some nootropics in there.
Say what?
Nootropics. A class of drugs which will help improve your mental functioning.
It'll make me smarter, huh? Anything else?
Yes. Benzedrine. It's a type of stimulant. It'll keep you alert and responsive for 12 straight hours.
That was quite a cocktail. Anything else in there?
Those nanomachines will also keep your Codex batteries charged up.
I guess I can call you when I'm ready to go on a diet.
You're welcome.
While it's not explained in full, nanomachines alter the bodies of human hosts, enhancing their natural abilities and performance, as well as other uses. Robot DNA that can basically be used to explain any weird thing you see in this series. The bullshit answer, if you like. Moving on from that, the Colonel lets Snake know that his niece Meryl was on the island during the day of the revolt, and is also being held captive. Then we hear about the new kids on the block, the members of Foxhound that are involved.
You guys remember the weird boss fights in the previous two games and how they had no substance at all?
These guys, however, a whole nother deal entirely. Their backgrounds, their personalities, they are woven into the story perfectly. Whereas the other guys from before were boss fights for the sake of boss fights.
Their demands are simple. The remains of a certain legendary soldier for his genes, as the Human Genome Project is a big part of the Next Gen Special Forces, allowing them to be better soldiers. But the remains the terrorists are asking for is that of the legendary soldier himself, Big Boss. And the terrorists are calling themselves the Sons of Big Boss. It's here we have the British bombshell known as Liquid Snake revealed as Foxhound squad leader, an exact duplicate of Solid Snake, to which Snake is obviously freaked the fuck out about. Snake is given two mission objectives: to save both the DARPA Chief Donald Anderson and Armstech President Kenneth Baker, who are both being held as hostages, and to find out if the terrorists can actually launch a nuke and stop them if they do. Given the very dire nature of the situation, Snake accepts the orders, and then decides to make his job harder for some reason by obviously looking different than Liquid by cutting his hair.
And so after about half an hour of reading up on the previous operations and looking at the briefing, Solid Snake heads into Shadow Moses to a mission even bigger than he realizes.
Snake quickly makes his way up to the main heliport where he witnesses Liquid climbing aboard a Hind D. Which gets Snake a little concerned, but with the Hind out dealing with the diversionary operation, it allows Snake to sneak in unnoticed. We're also introduced to a brand new, much better version of the Soliton radar by newcomer Mei Ling, tech geek who designed the new radar, proverb genius, and how we save. A welcome addition if you ask me. Snake crawls through the ventilation shafts where he gets a call from good old Master Miller, offering to help after hearing about the situation from Campbell, prompting a relieved response from Snake, given his history with Miller. Crawling on through, Snake eavesdrops on some guards where he hears that the DARPA chief was moved to the first floor basement. This is also where you can hear about an intruder other than Snake, who's not only killed 3 people, but is using stealth camouflage. Thing is though with this cutscene, it only plays if you've been spotted before that point. If not, it's just the cutscene about moving the chief. This legitimately fucked with me, and I actually restarted to see if my game was screwing with me. I guess I never noticed this before, because if I'm ever returning to this game, I'm actually skipping the cutscenes. Okay, so this wasn't in my initial script, but as I was looking things up in terms of the game's cutscenes, I found out there was a cutscene I had no idea even existed, where Snake crawls into the lower entrance. You hear guards talking about a shipment of SOCOM pistols. In all this time I've been playing the game, there's still shit I'm discovering about it. But let's get back on track. After going down the elevator, we spot the DARPA chief's green dot. Where he's either breakdancing or having a seizure in there, till we use our X-ray vision anyway. Snake then starts sneaking through another set of vents where he sees a guard taking a dump and not washing his hands. Gross. Ugh. Still wears his face mask though. We also see a woman working out before finally meeting up with the DARPA chief himself, probably nearly giving him a heart attack. Alright, I gotta talk about this. Every time I hear the DARPA chief talk, all I hear is Grim from the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Same thing goes for Grandpa Max in Ben 10. Every time he talks, all I hear is Colonel Campbell. But I'm getting off topic. After informing the chief of his orders to save him, Snake finds out as much info as he can, which reveals that this nuclear disposal facility has been housing something a lot more sinister. The terrorists do in fact have the ability to launch a nuke thanks to a weapon that is beyond anything anyone's ever seen before, leading to Snake putting 2 and 2 together and guessing that a new Metal Gear has been in production. Metal Gear Rex is the codename for the new Metal Gear project.
Which, if you ask me, is a far better name than TX-55 or D. Rex? Named after a fucking Tyrannosaurus? That's fucking badass.
Suddenly, this mission has gone from bad to far, far worse, and Snake is obviously keen on stopping this more than ever, and finds out from the DARPA chief that his code for activating the launch was, unfortunately, discovered by Psycho Mantis, the psychokinetic, telekinetic, freaky badass who can read minds, which, unfortunately, allows the terrorists to be one step closer to launching. Thankfully, though, the chief lets Snake know a way to stop the launch. The PAL system is a secret failsafe where if the codes have been put in, entering 3 of the PAL keys will stop the launch, which Baker should have the keys to. And Baker has been taken to the 2nd floor basement, according to the DARPA chief. Keen to move forward with his mission, Snake is ready to help save the chief. But as he goes to do that, the chief starts asking questions about whether or not there's any other way to stop the launch and what the White House plans to do, before suddenly suffers a painful looking heart attack, rightfully freaking the shit out of Snake. With no way of telling what exactly happened, Snake has no choice but to advance forward, but immediately getting snuck up on by the woman who has dressed herself in the enemy uniform, who initially mistakes Snake for the terrorist leader Liquid. Snake picks up pretty quickly that she's green and nervous, and either pulls out his SOCOM pistol in retaliation, or grabbing the barrel of her rifle, depending if you picked up the pistol or not. Before things escalate, the pair are ambushed by a group of soldiers nearby. After some words of encouragement by Snake, the female soldier begins to fight back and the pair dispatch the ambushing soldiers. After which, the soldier flees and starts shooting at Snake after falling under the influence of Psycho Mantis. Not to be one to slow down though, Snake goes on the hunt for the arms deck president and finds him after he starts to break the wall! Break down the walls! But he doesn't look too healthy given the fact that he's pinned against the pillar, surrounded by wires rigged to blow up C4. As Snake investigates, he is confronted by
The best character in the Metal Gear series.
Revolver Ocelot, a badass gunfighter and a specialist in interrogation. He begins taunting Snake before he begins their confrontation.
Draw!
So, quickly after we see Ocelot stroking his shaft and taking a load from behind, their gunfight comes to a climax after his hand is cut off.
What?
The mystery swordsman cuts off Ocelot's hand and frees Baker from his torment, before revealing himself as a badass cyborg ninja. Who seems to give a sort of respect to Snake before going batshit and fleeing, getting the appropriate response from Snake.
Who the hell?
Recovering from those weird series of events, Snake speaks to President Baker to find out more about the Rex project. But the worst thing is, Baker reveals that he told the terrorists his code after being tortured by Ocelot, meaning that the terrorists now have both launch codes and are another step closer to ending the world. But he shares an anecdote with Snake about resisting Psycho Mantis' mind reading with surgical implants in his brain, which the DARPA chief also had, which confuses both Snake and Baker. Baker begins to then explain that he had been colluding with the DARPA chief to secretly develop a new Metal Gear by supplying payments to a dummy corporation of arms tech to hide the development, as Baker's company was in a dire situation. Snake doesn't really care much for the choice to create Metal Gear, but despite this, Baker gives Snake the optical disc containing all the remaining data to do with the Metal Gear Rex project. Baker really gives us a lot of information here. Whether it's through in-game cutscenes or weirdly spliced in live action footage, the fuck is that about? He mentions that he gave the PAL key to the female soldier who was locked up, which Snake then surmises to be the Campbell's niece, Meryl. Snake finds out from Baker that he was in contact with her by codec, but when asking for her frequency...
Oh yeah, let me tell you, it's... Oh, sorry, I forgot. Damn! Oh, that's right. It should be on the back of the CD case. Try to contact her.
Snake then asks about what he could do if the PAL doesn't work. What is he to do? Which is where Baker tells Snake to find Dr. Hal Emmerich, the leader of the Metal Gear Rex project, who's being held captive in the nuclear warhead storage building to the north. Then Baker lets Snake in on what the fuck was up with that cyborg ninja. It was Foxhound's dark little secret, explaining that a Dr. Naomi Hunter should know more information. Then, from out of fuck off nowhere, Baker suddenly also has a painful looking heart attack, prompting Snake to angrily call Campbell to find out what's going on, not trusting him in the slightest, but unfortunately he gets nowhere. Naomi then mentions that she has no idea about the ninja either. A lot of weird shit is going on, but unfortunately the threat of the nuclear strike is still in effect, so Snake quickly makes his way back to the tank hangar to call up Meryl via codec. She is apologetic towards our hero after figuring out that he's the legendary Solid Snake, quickly explaining her side of things, and more specifically that the nuclear disposal site was always a front for the dummy corporation of Armstech. The civilian base was always meant to be for the production of the new model of Metal Gear. Meryl then quickly agrees to help Snake by opening the cargo door up ahead.
This is where my brother introduced me to my favourite game series of all time. The second game I have ever played, the first game being Super Mario 64. I walked straight into that infrared sensor at the age of 7 and was gassed to death. This game's great.
After getting past the infrared lasers, either with thermal goggles or cigarettes, Snake finds himself in a minefield, which he only finds out when he gets...
You have a collect call from...
Deep Throat.
Will you accept the charges?
No!
This mystery caller lets Snake know about the mines, as well as the oncoming ambush from Vulcan Raven, one of the members of Foxhound, one big-ass mother with a hard-on for ravens and giving himself an unfair advantage. But this is fucking Solid Snake we're talking about here. Motherfucker has destroyed 2 Metal Gears at this point. And with the help of chaff and good old fucking hand grenades, Snake takes down the M1 tank, retrieving the next level keycard to move on. Snake finally arrives at the nuclear warhead storage building and arrives at the entrance of Hal's lab, and walks in on a scene from Nightmare on Elm Street, and Freddy Krueger is played by the cyborg ninja. Fearing for Dr. Emmerich's life, Snake rushes in to confront the ninja.
Hal urinates on himself. Ha ha, what a funny joke. Ha ha.
The ninja reveals that he has been waiting for Snake to battle to the death, to soothe his soul. Quickly realizing that guns ain't gonna do jack against this badass, Snake pulls out his trusty fisticuffs and decks that fucker in the face.
Haha, the ninja's a masochist and it's totally sexualated. Gee, it's not like he was a petri dish for experiments and he just wants to feel pain so he can feel something again. Totally, it's sex-related. No, seriously, I fucking hate that joke.
After knocking him down a peg, Snake realizes that his once-fallen comrade is standing in front of him. Grey Fox, the hostage from outer heaven, the friend that taught him to be not so green, turned enemy as he faced off against Snake in Zanzibar. According to Naomi, he was once thought dead, but revived after the fall of Zanzibar. Scientists, particularly a Dr. Clark at Foxhound, fitted him with an exoskeleton, keeping him drugged and essentially using him as a petri dish to succeed in their experiments. Experiments which led to the creation of the next generation special forces of the Genome Army. Truly a terrible fate for Grey Fox.
Honestly, this is one of the better moments in the game in terms of storytelling. Not only is it a clever twist and it ties to the previous games, but we also get a really solid emotional performance from David Hayter, the voice of Snake.
After that emotional train wreck, Snake moves quickly to retrieve Hal from his hiding place, where he confronts him about Metal Gear. Hal unfortunately was not lit in on the tiny little detail that Metal Gear is a nuke-firing death machine, shocking him to his very core. He may have been the head of development for the Metal Gear Rex project, but he was never spoken to about armament. only that it has a Vulcan cannon, missiles, a laser, and a railgun, a large gun which uses magnets to fire bullets at high velocities, which at the time seemed crazy to my little young brain, but nowadays it's really not too outside the realm of possibility, which is pretty scary when you think about it. Hal explains that Metal Gear was developed in a joint venture between Armstech and Rivermore National Labs, and they were able to miniaturize the railgun, which was based on the railgun meant for SDI. Hal feels so much remorse for his actions, being kept in the dark, and feeling as if nuclear torment is in his genes. His father was born on the day of the Hiroshima bomb, and his grandfather was part of the Manhattan Project. He actually got into science because of his love of Japanese mechs he had seen from anime. He even mentions to Snake that he'd like to be called Otacon after Otaku Convention.
So, if it wasn't obvious enough, Hal is a massive nerd, and the motherfucker also lies about bringing you rations and stuff.
As Snake is ready to head off to the underground maintenance base to the north, where Metal Gear is being held, he receives a codec call from Meryl, with strange music in the background, which Otacon is somehow able to hear despite what the Colonel said, and Meryl is seemingly compromised. Snake rushes to find her, leaving Otacon in the safety of his own stealth camouflage, and after looking at some soldier booty, trust me that makes sense in context, Snake chases Meryl to the bathroom where they'd be able to talk alone. Meryl informs Snake of her decisions for fighting, wanted to be more like her heroes, Snake and her uncle, but more so her father, who died in the Gulf War, according to Campbell. Snake kinda shrugs this off, however, as he's never seen himself as a hero. Ever. Meryl hands over the PAL key, which disturbs Snake given the fact there are supposed to be 3 keys. But hey, one is better than none after all, and so the dynamic duo of Meryl and Snake head off to find Metal Gear. But 5 minutes in, Meryl starts acting a little weird, before suddenly pulling her gun on Snake. Seems like that Psycho Mantis is up to no good again, and Snake knocks out Meryl to free Mantis' grip on her. Mantis confronts Snake head-on, even proving his powers to him, reading whether or not you've saved a lot, if you're good at avoiding traps, or you're a moron, but this guy can even read your memory card. If you've played a particular game like Castlevania Symphony of the Night, for instance, this guy will know. But, best of all, his telekinetic powers that can move your controller! Alright, he's just vibrating the controller, but I tell you what, to this day, it's one of the greatest things ever. I don't even fucking care. So, after basically sucking his own dick for a bit, the battle ensues, and no matter what you do to this guy, you'll never hit him. Your only hope? Call Campbell for how to beat him. Your calls to him will start off more as hints before outright telling you, which is actually one of my favourite things in this series. They don't treat you like an idiot. Anyway, after enough calls, the Colonel will tell you to switch your controller port from 1 to port 2, as Mantis can only read port 1, which allows you to hit him. Can't do that for some reason? Don't worry, Kojima's thought of everything. Just wait for the Colonel to tell you to switch ports, die, restart the boss fight and call Campbell again. He'll then tell you to shoot the 2 statues at the upper corners of the room. This throws Mantis off, allowing Snake to get the upper hand and win. In his defeat, Mantis says that sex is the reason there's war. Weird. And he reads both Snake and Meryl's minds, revealing that Snake and he share trauma, and predicting turmoil in both of their futures before dying. As our heroes advance, we get a little insight on Snake's life that's not to do with killing or his line of work, but things like being a musher with wolf dogs. Wolf dogs that happily rip Snake to shit. Until you have a puppy piss on a box after punching Meryl. Who the fuck figured this out? Meryl stops as she notices Claymore mines laid out, and using her powers of deduction, she draws a submarine with a footprint. As they advance, they both act real fucking dumb when they see the red dot sight of a fucking sniper rifle. Yeah, let me just stand here, ready to get shot. Good idea. Seriously, they just stalled here, and it's kinda silly. Anyway, the sniper shoots Meryl, injuring her severely, to attempt to draw Snake out, instead of just shooting him, but whatever. If one Foxhound member wasn't bad enough, it turns out sending another one right after is a pretty good idea, as this sniper turns out to be the deadly sharpshooter, Sniper Wolf. Campbell frantically calls Snake after his niece just got gunned down. Any attempts to advance, Snake will just get shot. Snake remains as calm as he can and contacts Otacon for assistance in finding a sniper rifle to fight back. Otacon nervously reveals that there's one sitting in the second floor basement of the tank hangar. That's right, all the way back. But thankfully, with some handy-dandy fast travel with some boxes, why are these guys even delivering stuff anyways? It takes no real time at all and gives the player a chance to explore Shadow Motors a little more. Snake returns to find Meryl missing, but Wolf is still waiting for him, and after a fun sniper battle, Wolf is down for the count, but her body isn't where it should be. Surprise, she's actually perfectly fucking fine after taking some sniper rounds to the face. What? Cornered, Snake is captured. As he awakes, Snake finally comes into contact with Foxhound's squad leader, Liquid, who taunts Snake about their likeness to each other, calling him brother. Ocelot takes the optical disc containing all of Rex's test data from Snake and begins torturing him for information, more pertaining to the trick to using the POW keys. After a quick crying, Snake resists the torture, as Ocelot said if he was to submit, the torture would stop, but Meryl would be killed. Snake is taken to a jail cell where the DARPA chief's corpse is laying, but strangely it seems as if he's been dead for days, despite dying a couple of hours ago. Snake quickly over Codex scolds Campbell for hiding information from him, and that he had always known about Rex from the beginning. Snake starts to speak a little bit more openly about himself to Naomi, naming his friends Roy Campbell and Frank Yeager, Grey Fox himself, which shocks and confuses Naomi, but begins to understand a little when Snake explains further. He also states that the only family he was ever aware of is the man he defeated twice, who proclaimed himself as Snake's father, the legendary soldier himself, Big Boss.
Alright, so this is never actually stated in Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake. It's just kind of retconned, and the series is going to be kind of full of it, so you just kind of have to take their word for it, because I think it's a good change in terms of storytelling.
As the torture continues, we actually find out more from Ocelot and his stake in things. He wishes to see the rebirth of Mother Russia. He also mentions his admiration for Liquid and something called the Les Enfants Terribles project. After the torture, we're told things about Naomi and her life and how she got into genetics to know who she was, her grandfather being in the FBI and such. The guard then gets a horrible case of the runs, which allows Otacon to help Snake, giving him a ration, some ketchup, a level 6 security card, and a handkerchief that was given to him by Sniper Wolf, confirming that his odd behaviour means Otacon is kinda simping out to Wolf despite her murderous intent. Well, alrighty then, so there's two ways of getting out. Either lay on the ground and let that ketchup run, tricking the guard, or, if that doesn't work, wait around a little bit and let Grey Fox bust you out. Snake quickly makes his way back to the glaciers, and using Sniper Wolf's handkerchief, which he got from Otacon, he can not only make the wolf dogs show up out of fucking nowhere, but also allow him safe passage through to the communication towers. Only this time actually having the ability to advance. Snake is then spotted by a camera, and is then chased by guards all the way to the top. If that wasn't enough, as Snake is about to walk across the communication tower walkway, Liquid blows it to fuck with the Hind D. With literally no possible way to fight, Snake has no choice but to rappel down the side of the tower.
If I had a rope, I should be able to use that rope I got.
If only I had a glass. I should be able to use that glass I got.
Snake manages to survive the small excursion and picks up that always handy Stinger missile launcher and heads back up to the second tower and blows that motherfucker away.
That takes care of the cremation.
So after dealing with the Hind D and some invisible ambushes, Snake heads down to the snowfield but is suddenly shot by a sniper. But then gets up straight away. Oh, so that's how Wolf did it. So it's finally time, a one-on-one sniper battle getting revenge from Meryl in the middle of a freezing blizzard with nothing but hate for each other. Truly, a sniper battle for the ages. So after shooting that prick with Nikita missiles, she goes down, deeply upsetting Otacon, who truly loved her, leading to one of the most iconic and decisively emotional scenes in the entire Metal Gear series, and it still gets me emotional to this day. Snake makes his peace with Wolf, giving her respect and fulfilling her final wish.
What was she fighting for? What am I fighting for? What are you fighting for?
What am I fighting for?
Alrighty kids, it's time to switch game discs. Don't hit reset on the console like I used to when I was a kid all the damn time. It's been a long road so far, but it's not over yet. Sanic heads down to the underground maintenance base, first arriving at the boiling hot blast furnace. He heads forward to the cargo elevator and is ambushed for a second time by guards on the elevator. It takes Snake no time at all to deal with them, but they were the warm-up. As things get colder, he is once again confronted by Vulcan Raven. While not in a tank this time, he is, however, wielding a fucking Gatling gun used on a fighter jet. Oh yeah, because that's fucking fair. Raven talks about the Eskimo Olympics and eating muktuks before a fun showdown with Snake, which, in all honesty, it's one of my favourite boss fights of the series. It is a boss designed for a stealth game, hiding away out of the enemy's sight, fighting when necessary, laying traps, and in fact that's actually how I beat Raven. He walked into one of my claymores. After his defeat, Raven offers Snake a hint as to things that are really going on.
Alrighty fellas, you've probably noticed that elephant who's not been in the room, so I think it's time to talk about him.
Turns out the guy we were meant to save first, the DARPA chief, was never actually the DARPA chief. It was in fact Decoy Octopus of Foxhound, the master of disguise, the dude who went as far as to copy people down to the blood. This confuses Snake royally, but unfortunately Raven reveals no more, leaving it up to Snake to figure out the rest. After these events, Snake receives a call from Master Miller, who begins speaking about his suspicions he's been having about Naomi after she mentioned about her past. Miller did some digging and found out that Naomi isn't exactly who she's been letting herself on to be, greatly concerning Snake. Campbell, hearing this, also starts asking questions, more pertaining to the fact if Naomi isn't working with Campbell and Snake, could she be colluding with the terrorists? Campbell once again does a terrible job hiding the fact that he's withholding information. Miller even pries into him, asking if Naomi has something to do with the weird deaths of the DARPA chief and the Armstech president. Campbell asks for time to figure this out, but is scolded by Snake. But Snake, however, is a little preoccupied to be thinking about anything else and heads forward, arriving at the foot of Rex. The fucking thing we've been talking about this whole time is in front of us, in a very quiet, empty space. The terrorists seem ready to launch. Snake begins his ascent, but not before he receives a call from Otacon, who begins digging through Baker's files to find out about the PAL override, and any other info that'll help Snake learn about Metal Gear. It's here that we learn the truth. Metal Gear's capabilities as a nuclear weapon far exceed anything seen before, as the railgun would be used to fire the nukes, making them impossible to intercept or predict. A complete stealth nuclear weapon. Snake ascends further, arriving at the control room where Ocelot and Liquid are chilling out, and Snake witnesses as they input the codes ready to launch. Then, finally, Otacon reveals the truth about the PAL key. It can be used to deactivate the launch if the input codes have been entered into Rex, but it could be also used to activate Rex if the input codes weren't put in as a failsafe. And to keep it extra safe, it turns out having one PAL key means having all three, as the key changes shape in different temperatures.
So I've been holding out about talking about something for a little bit, but I think it's time we go into it right now. It's almost an insane amount of similarities between this game and Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake on the MSX.
From the hind fight to finding a character on the radar using remote-controlled missiles, the guards in the elevator, a female contact in disguise who has feelings for Snake, a secret admirer who gives Snake advice, a fight with a boss in stealth, a chase up a spiral staircase, looking on the back of a game package to figure out different frequencies, a whole smattering of others, and of course, changing the keys via different temperatures.
Alright, so anyone normally would call this lazy, but I think it's appropriate given the fact that the previous two games were Japan only, and just reintroducing some elements for a bigger production, I think works to its benefit, but I digress.
Snake looks in on Ocelot and Liquid as they begin talking about their target of Lopnor, China, on a nuclear test site which would bring great concern to China where the random nuke came from, causing them to start asking questions to the US, pushing their hand to reveal the existence of Rex and the Genome Army, rendering the president at a loss, which in turn would bring the global superpowers to Liquid, willing to buy Metal Gear from them. Liquid then mentions that they have added to their list of demands Big Boss's DNA, $1 billion, and something called the Foxdie vaccine. He then makes the decision to ally with Sergei Galukovich and his Russian forces. Sergei had already given them the tank and the hind and other firepower as a down payment for Rex, but in joining forces, Liquid decides to rename the Shadow Moses base Outer Heaven. rebuilding Big Boss's ultimate dream.
Already, Snake, that key is the one thing that's going to stop Metal Gear and Liquid. You best hold on to that thing for dear life. God damn it!
So Snake is shot at by Ocelot, causing him to lose the PAL key temporarily to a rat, which somehow gobbles the key up in one bite instead of little nibbles. Yeah, sure, alright. Snake then goes back up and inputs PAL key number 1, then gets on his way to freeze the key, which he does with little issue, and inserts PAL key number 2. On his way to the blast furnace to heat the key up, Snake receives a codec call from Miller, asking him to turn his monitor off, then talking about his contact in the Pentagon, who's found out about a supposed new assassination weapon being developed by the DIA under the name of Foxdie. Snake quickly recalls Liquid and Ocelot talking about it. Miller then remarks how similar the deaths of Decoy Octopus and President Baker were, and how Foxdie apparently kills its victims by simulating a heart attack, inferring that Naomi was the mastermind behind it. Turns out that injection of nanomachines wasn't the only thing that was in there. Foxdie was also in there too. As Snake asks the Colonel what the situation is, Campbell responds that he has had Naomi placed under arrest as she was found sending messages to the base, confirming the suspicions of her working with the terrorists. As Snake heats the key up and makes his way back, he receives a codec call from Naomi herself on a different codec. I don't get how that works. Naomi reveals that she was in fact a spy, revealing that her choice was decided a long time ago. She grew up an orphan in Rhodesia after her parents were killed, but she was rescued by her adoptive brother, Frank Yeager. My mind was blown at this scene. It's such a clever twist and a subtle surprise, giving perfect reasoning and emotion behind her choices. Yes, it turns out Grey Fox, the man who was crippled by Snake in Zanzibar, was the adopted brother of Naomi Hunter.
And if you'll all remember from the Metal Gear 2 Solid Snake review, you'll remember that Yeager means hunter. Naomi Hunter? Surprise?
Naomi continues by mentioning that after Big Boss himself brought her to America, she went into genetics after her brother was crippled in Zanzibar. She covered his escape and murder of Dr. Clark up, and she vowed revenge against Snake by joining Foxhound to have a chance meeting of coming face to face with Snake to get her chance. Naomi mentions that she no longer has hatred for Snake though. You'll have noticed that throughout the game, Naomi has been quite harsh and cold towards Snake, mentioning how other people's deaths couldn't ever bother him so much, assuming a lot about his personality. But when she noticed how much he went out of his way to save Meryl's life and talking fondly about Grey Fox, she realised that Snake wasn't the man she thought. But it's already too late, as she had injected Snake with Foxdie to kill those it was meant to, but reprogramming it to kill Snake too. You see, Foxdie is a virus that kills only specific people, by having it learn the person's DNA, and once it matches up to what the virus knows, it causes the heart cells to have an extreme apoptosis, causing the heart cells to commit suicide, killing its victim. Snake, while shocked, understands her, but says how his job isn't over yet. But then, another bombshell is dropped on Snake. Naomi didn't make the decision to use Foxdie. It was always meant to be injected as part of the operation from the beginning, but before she could reveal any more, Campbell has her captured again, pissing Snake off severely, feeling ultimately betrayed by his once friend and commanding officer. But despite this, Snake continues his mission, which, I don't know, it seems a bit weird. Why the fuck would you want to work for these assholes? I'm getting off topic again. Snake then reaches the command room where the input for the PAL key takes place. He inputs the final key to deactivate Rex. So, it turns out the terrorists never input the codes, and Snake, using the PAL keys, activated Rex. Surprise! Miller calls Snake and begins thanking him, as the terrorists accidentally killed the DARPA chief in the torture room, losing their chance to learn of his code. But they learnt that the PAL key could also be used to launch after Ocelot tortured Baker. They had Snake input the launch for them, using Octopus to act as the DARPA chief to get Snake to find the PAL key in the first place. However, they hadn't planned for Snake to be the carrier for Foxdie. Snake increasingly gets angry as Miller continues to talk, but Campbell butts in to reveal that Master Miller has been dead for 3 days, and that the person Snake has been talking to this whole time has been Liquid himself. No shit! From the beginning, he's been manipulating Snake and other events to lead Snake here to this very point. So it's lucky their attempts at killing him with a tank, a hind, a sniper, a crazy psychic, a cowboy, a Gatling gun, and shitloads of guards and other crazy bullshit failed. If their intention was to get Snake this far, don't you think that shit was kind of pushing it? Sure, you could get the PAL key off Snake after killing him, but without Otacon going out of his way to help Snake figure out the trick of the PAL key, they'd be screwed. Also, you can totally chill out in the fight with Raven and see the PAL key has changed shape before Otacon tells you, but Snake never actually brings this up, like, hey guys, what the fuck? Snake confronts Liquid face to face, finding out that Liquid disguised himself as Miller not only to manipulate Snake, but also get intel off of him, such as the ones who decided to use Fox Dye. The Pentagon planned to have Snake injected with Fox Dye in order to receive the bodies of the Genome soldiers and retrieve Metal Gear undamaged for themselves, but didn't foresee Naomi's changing it to have it kill Snake too.
Liquid kind of makes a really good point here of how Snake constantly goes on with his mission despite the fact that he's constantly being stabbed in the back by his superiors. I kind of agree with Liquid on this one.
Liquid then explains to Snake that it was indeed Fox Dye that killed Octopus and Baker, but it also seems to have left Ocelot himself and Snake unaffected, which Liquid states as a reason not to be concerned, as if it were to kill Snake, it would also kill Liquid, as they are identical on the genetic level, thus confirming that Snake and Liquid are twins. But it ain't no ordinary twin birth here, as Liquid then brings mention to the Les Enfants Terribles project once again, stating that Snake had received all of the dominant genes from Big Boss and Liquid was given flawed and recessive genes.
Genes don't work like that.
After constantly being told by Big Boss that he was inferior, he vowed revenge, but could never take it out on him as Snake had killed him before Liquid ever could, leading to him entering Rex and facing off against Snake.
Looks like it's that time again where Snake has to do battle with a nuclear death machine for a third time, I might add. But this time it's a whole different ball game. TX-55 and Metal Gear D, they've got nothing on Rex. This thing's a fucking beast, and hey, look, it even rocks.
Using advice from Otacon, Snake takes aim at the radome, the radar for Rex, as Liquid isn't actually using his naked eyes. Otacon says to blind Rex's use of the radome to open the cockpit up and destroy the interior. Snake begins firing at that sumbitch and almost gets the job done, but is saved from a crushing defeat. Saved by none other than Grey Fox, who had been talking to Snake the whole time as Deep Throat. Fox then busts up the radome a bit more to have a quick heart-to-heart with Snake, in which he reveals that he rescued and adopted Naomi as his sister, as it was he who was the one that killed her parents. He felt the guilt immediately and decided to save her. Then, in a valiant effort to allow Snake a free shot on Rex, Fox attempts to stop Rex from moving. However, is unfortunately outmatched, resulting in Fox losing an arm to Rex's laser, and being pressed against the wall by Metal Gear itself. But this is Grey fucking Fox we're talking about here, and he proves that when he destroys Rex's radome with some weird laser gun thing.
Where did he get that, by the way?
Liquid, now on show, taunts Snake, because if Snake were to take the free shot on Liquid, it would also kill Fox. But, unfortunately, that wouldn't have mattered. Liquid scrapes Fox to the floor and gives my favourite speech in video games, so I'll let the video speak for itself.
Snake, we're not tools of the government or anyone else. Fighting was the only thing I was good at. But at least I always fought for what I believed in. Snake, farewell.
Fucking heartbreaking. Liquid crushes Fox with Rex, cueing the correct response from Snake, and the fight with Metal Gear ensues, which for the third time, somehow, someway, Snake manages to pull off, but this time is blown against the wall in the explosion. Snake slowly awakens to find himself stripped of his gear and now on top of the destroyed Rex. Liquid reveals his plans, of which aren't too dissimilar to that of Big Boss, but he wishes to bring the world back to some chaotic nature after it had been soft for far too long. Liquid even accuses Snake of wanting the same thing as him deep down too, because of course he would, as he and Snake were literally created to be that way.
Ready for another bombshell?
Not only are Liquid and Snake the true sons of Big Boss, and twins, but they're also clones of Big Boss. Big Boss was injured and in a coma when his DNA was extracted and was used to create his clones, as the government saw losing the greatest soldier of all time to be a tragic waste. Raven, earlier on, actually gave Snake 2 hints. Obviously the one with Octopus being DARPA chief, and that he was a clone with this line here, which is beautifully subtle. After Liquid's speech about his genes being what has taken him on this path, Snake receives a call from Campbell revealing to Snake that due to the Secretary of Defense taking over operational control, B-2 bombers are on their way to Shadow Moses as they have learned of Rex's destruction, and the B-2 stealth bombers are on their way to bomb Shadow Moses to hell and nuke it to cover up the truth of what really happened there, as fears of Foxeye and Naomi's betrayal come to light. Campbell then reveals to Snake that Meryl was sent to Shadow Moses before the terrorist attack as a way of manipulating Campbell into doing their bidding, such as lying to Snake and withholding information. Campbell never wanted to betray Snake, but the Secretary of Defense had Campbell do this in exchange for Meryl's life to pull his strings. So, he finally gets off his ass to attempt to stop the madness by planning to disrupt the chain of command to at least buy Snake some time to escape. But before he can do anything, he is knocked unconscious and the call is taken over by Secretary of Defense Jim Houseman. Which always confused me. Wasn't the Colonel and our support team on a fucking submarine? Whatever. Jim Houseman speaks about how there will be no evidence left as they nuke the place, with a cover story ready, without the President properly knowing. With the Secretary of Defense's final ultimatum being that if Snake returned the optical disc with Rex's data, he might let them live. But, as Snake no longer has it, he ends the call, calling Snake and Liquid an embarrassment. Liquid, accepting his fate, unties Snake ready for a final confrontation, by also surprising him with the fact that Meryl is also on top of Rex. Okay, how the fuck did he get everyone on top of Rex? How did he do it? She lies motionless next to a nuclear module set to go off at the precise moment of her death, which is apparently 3 minutes according to Liquid. I don't get how that works, so...
I mean, if the nuke goes off, then it's the precise moment of all of their deaths.
Then, it's time for a hand-to-hand battle between the twin snakes, which is hard and grueling, and I only just discovered you could actually flip Liquid over in this review, but it ultimately ends with Snake throwing Liquid off the giant mech, which is quite a height.
Okay, how did Liquid get them up there? Seriously, what the fuck?
Snake rushes over to Meryl to discover she is alive. Only if you survive the torture sequence. So, if you were to submit, this is the deciding factor if Meryl lives or dies. If you submit this scene, holy fucking shit, I do not remember this scene being quite like this. It seriously makes you feel like a fucking awful person, and Snake beats himself up extremely hard, with only Otacon showing up to give him some sort of comfort. But hey, it's okay, Meryl's surviving is the canon ending, so rejoice. Snake saves the girl, and in this scenario, Otacon calls Snake via Snake. Otacon calls Snake via codec to let him know that he has been fighting with himself to know exactly what he was fighting for. Ultimately deciding to stay in Shadow Moses to help Snake and Meryl escape by unlocking doors and such using his hacking skills. Snake and Meryl make their escape on the back of a jeep, with Snake on the jeep's turret helping deal with any threats, including... Oh wow, he just keeps going, huh? But it's okay, Snake might not have any of his gear, but he does have one thing that he didn't have this whole time. First-person shooting. Snake fends off Liquid as long as he can before they reach the end, which ends in a car crash. Could you imagine, after all the shit Snake has gone through up until this point, tanks, hinds, a fucking Metal Gear, and a car crash is the thing that did him in? Thankfully though, that's not the case. The two just happen to be stuck underneath it. No big deal, right? Oh, god damn it. This scene still gives me chills to this day. Such a clever end and a surprise. It's chilling and spooky, all things considered. Spooky especially for Snake, who knows that if Liquid has died, that means Snake isn't too far behind.
No stealth bombers in sight.
Well, duh, they're called stealth bombers. Campbell calls Snake to let him know that he managed to get in contact with the president, to let him know of the situation, leading to the president cancelling the air raid and the Secretary of Defense being arrested, as he was acting alone in this whole situation, and that Washington isn't stupid enough to use nukes to cover up secrets, which I'm pretty sure Snake kinda doubts. Snake then asks the question about Foxdie. After all, it killed Liquid. What's gonna happen to him? Naomi then enters the call to tell Snake basically absolutely fucking nothing. He asks Naomi, the only one who knows when Snake is gonna die because of Foxdie, but she tells him to live his life with everything he's got, which doesn't answer his question. But from the research I've gathered, it's literally a random event, so Snake could possibly die in 2 minutes or 20 years. It's random, probably explaining her vague answer, because even she doesn't fucking know. With his mission over, Snake and Meryl climb aboard a snowmobile, finding a bandana for a reminder on how to live, as they ride off together into the distance. Alternatively though, in the bad ending, Archon gives Snake his stealth camo, and they make a 2001 A Space Odyssey reference, as we learn that Snake's real name is David. Also in this bad ending, we find out that Meryl was actually the daughter of Roy the entire time. But we got the good ending, so let's stay in the dark on that one until later. After the beautiful ending credits theme, which still gets me emotional to this day, we hear one side of a phone call coming from Ocelot, who, after shooting the power key out of Snake's hands, kind of fucked off and disappeared. He tells the other end of the line that it turns out the one with the inferior genes won after all, and that he purposefully killed the DARPA chief as he knew Ocelot's true identity, and in killing the chief, his cover remained intact, also letting him know that no one knew that he was the third one, naming him Solidus. Ocelot then compliments this Solidus for being a well-balanced individual in order to rule the world as the president.
I did it, guys. I did the plot summary for Metal Gear Solid 1. Are you proud of me? Jeez. That took a lot out of me to do that plot summary, but we're here, guys. I did it. And if you're here after skipping the plot summary, welcome back. It is quite the lengthy plot summary, but I did say I was going to be going into detail with these games.
Holy fuck, this game. There was a few points in this review I actually forgot to start the recording session, and I forgot I was meant to be taking notes, because I got caught up in the wonder and mystery of this game, so yeah, talk about incredible. Kojima said he wanted to go out of his way to create the best PlayStation game ever, and you know what? I think he went and did it. It might be a cutscene heavy game, but with the amount of atmosphere, one of the best PlayStation soundtracks I've ever heard, and some of the best storytelling I've seen in a game, it is always a joy to watch, and play for that matter. It might feel at times like you're watching a movie, which in my opinion is fine, because from the start of playing this series, I went in with the mindset and the knowledge of the fact that in this game series, story is going to be a big thing.
And if it was a movie, I'd be fine with that. Give me the movie soon, please.
Because Hideo Kojima mostly being made of movies, he knew what he was doing, and it gives him so much merit as the game's director. Not only is his story supported by good cinematography, twists, atmosphere, and a great musical accompaniment, but also probably the greatest voice acting performance ever in a PlayStation 1 game, period. We finally get to hear the voice of our hero, Solid Snake, and his first line is,
What's the insertion method?
Despite that, hearing Snake's voice is always wondrous, and David Hayter is the perfect man for the role. I've never heard quite a voice like his, and to me, in terms of performance, it is what I look to as the gold standard. If any voice acting doesn't come close to this, it's a step down in my book. I basically said this to David when I met him at Comic-Con, that his voice was the first I'd heard and really listened to give an emotional performance via voice acting, which gave me a real appreciation for the art. To which he responded in his Snake voice by saying my name and following it with, "You're pretty good," which almost made me squeal like a little fanboy, but I held it together until he whispered Metal Gear in my ear in his Snake voice, making me laugh my ass off. But enough on that. The music isn't only a natural advancement of the previous games, but it's also beautifully composed to create both tense atmospheres and heart-wrenching emotional scenes, all with it making it an energetic wild ride the entire time. The cast of characters in this game is also awesome, from the Foxhound unit to your support team, including, for some reason, optional Nastasha Romanenko. It's nice to see that characters have a lot more personality with the help from the voice acting. Like the character of Snake, he's a bit of a wise ass and a flirt, and yes, he also has a tendency of repeating what others have just said, and he also asks a lot of questions. And like I said earlier, Liquid brings up a really good point about how Snake gets backstabbed and lied to every 2 seconds. I'm surprised he just didn't join the terrorists. Not only that, he really puts up with a lot, the backstabbing for one, Fox die, he learning he's a clone, he has a lot dropped on him, but credit where it's due, he keeps on going. He definitely deserves to be the hero of this story. In fact, everyone has their place. Nastasha gives a lot of technical jargon about weapons and nuclear proliferation and stuff. Otacon is fun to talk to. Mei Ling makes saving your game fucking interesting with actually handy proverb advice. The Colonel makes sure you're staying on track whilst also helping you solve things like boss strategies and stuff. Naomi gives background on the Foxhound unit, and Miller gives more advice to you, the player, as opposed to Snake himself.
While this game is a story-driven work of art, Miller does give you, the player, some indication and tips on how to do things, which means you play this game. It is a game after all, so I think it's time we dive into the very first 3D Metal Gear game and how it plays.
Alrighty then, I had a little trouble deciding where to begin on this one, but I think the best place to start is actually with the VR missions. A little training module for Snake which teaches the basic fundamentals for stealthing around in 3D for how to play. In terms of basic sneaking around, staying out of enemy sight, which is so much better to handle, but I'll get into that in a bit. It teaches you the basics on knocking on walls, crawling around, but ultimately, the VR missions teach you one very valuable thing, that these new enemies are pretty dumb, blind and sleepy, no matter what Naomi tells you. The controls are super responsive, and I always feel like I'm in total control of Snake, and there's never a time where I feel like the game is what causes me to screw up, but it's actually my fault if something goes wrong. This time around, Snake's radar gives us one of the most useful things ever, the enemy cone of vision. If Snake is inside that blue cone, that's it, you're spotted. But wait, what's that? A guard patrolling has a tell, so I won't randomly get fucked over by him turning around randomly. This also allows you to sneak up behind guards and get them into a chokehold, which, if you rapidly choke them, Snake will break the enemy's necks.
Hey Dan, it's just like in the Metal Gear 2 review, remember? Like when I snuck up behind you and did that chokehold thing? Yeah, that was a funny skit, right? Good times.
Yeah, funny joke, funny neck snapping chokehold joke. Funny enough to make me mad.
Wait, what?
Is it funny now? You long-haired fuck!
Listen, you! Wait! When did you become a 12-year-old boy?
Oh well, it's actually quite a funny song. Poke me in the eye, you son of a... Just a scratch. Or I guess not. Call it a draw.
One thing you'll notice when comparing to the original games is that, while yes, the game feels a little stiff, it's far more fluid than its predecessors, and the controls are quick and snappy. Stealthing around in 3D is a lot more fun than the MSX games ever were, as the cone of vision from the enemies means you can plan your moves a little better than you could in the previous games, as it can be a little unpredictable at times. This time around, the guards are a little more resilient in that the simple punch stun lock is long gone, and instead Snake uses a 2-punch kick combo, and this will simply stun your enemies now. Although the hand-to-hand combat is a little stiff, it can be easy to get a handle around. Same goes for the gunplay. Snake, for some reason, stands in place to shoot for whatever reason. Thankfully, though, the game functions around it. But there is actually a way to aim, shoot, and run at the same time. By holding down the X button and the aim button, Snake can run and gun, which turns the Ocelot boss fight into an absolute joke. Speaking of boss fights, holy shit, what an improvement. These fights actually feel new, and are some of the most interesting and innovative boss fights there is. Need I bring up Psycho Mantis again? After every boss fight, Snake rubs his face all anime-like, and his maximum health goes up, as well as his ammo capacity. Shooting itself is pretty easy to get a hang of. Just hold down the square button to aim, push hard, and release the fire. But if you hold down the button to say when an enemy is coming around a corner, Snake will actually auto-aim, which is pretty nice if you ask me. And wait, what's this? Guards actually drop items now, even after shooting them. Thank you. There's also an abundance of items laying around, which includes tons of weaponry. The rations this time around are a lot easier to grasp the idea of, as it's only one type of ration which helps Snake regain health. Just don't leave them in the freezer for too long. The card keys this time around also stack, replacing the card before it, avoiding any kind of confusion from last time. One of the major additions to Snake's arsenal is actually being able to look around in first-person mode. If you happen to know there is a guard patrolling the area but isn't on the radar, switch to first-person mode to help you out. One of my favourite things about MGS1 is the sound effects. This game spawned one of the most famous sound effects of all time. God, it makes you jump, but when you hear that noise, you know you done fucked up and it's time to run or fight. And we all know it's been a text tone for our phones many a time. Some of my favourite sound effects are the eerie sounding ones. It always makes you feel like something's missing or you're on edge.
Babe, where are the nuggies?
We've been out of nuggies for months now.
One thing I feel about the MSX games is that after beating them, it doesn't feel like I have much reason to go back and play it again. Like, sure, there's the hindsight of knowing where things are and being able to solve things quicker, but other than that, not a lot of reason to go back. Metal Gear Solid, however? Good God, I've lost count how many times I've replayed this game. Not just for how fucking fun it is, but the amount of replay value is staggering. There's so many choices and differences each time you go through the game. Here's some choice examples. Didn't get spotted at the start of the game? The cutscenes will adjust to fit the narrative. Did you know that if during the air duct sequence you can see Meryl doing different workouts if you look and then leave and re-enter the vents? Forgot to pick up the SOCOM at the start of the game? The cutscene where Meryl stares down Snake will be different. The different ways of beating Psycho Mantis. Failed to escape with the ketchup? Grey Fox will bust you out. Don't have the CD case to find Meryl's codec? Call Campbell 3 times. Another awesome thing to do is actually go through as much codec as possible. Not only is it great to see some more character interactions, especially with the extremely emotive character art, but you can hear subtleties in the truth of the story if you call characters at specific points. But of course, there's the two big reasons to go back through Metal Gear Solid. The stealth camo and the bandana. Stealth is your I win mode. Not one enemy can spot you other than bosses. You can walk through enemies and dick around with them lots, or even walk through those damn infrared lasers. The bandana is just as fun, allowing you to have completely infinite ammo for every weapon, so don't you worry about running out of anything. Your third time around after getting both endings, you'll also unlock a snazzy tuxedo for Snake to wear, obviously in reference to James Bond, and the cyborg ninja also looks like Spider-Man for some reason. This game has so much replay value, you could swim in it. But if that ain't enough for you, it might be worth looking into the VR missions disc. I'll not spend too much time talking about this, but it's a far more extensive list of VR missions which range from fairly normal to downright hokey. But you even get to play as Grey Fox for a few missions. But you complete them all and...
It's no
not over yet!
Alright, I guess I'm not completely done when it comes to the topic of Metal Gear Solid. There's actually 3 things that I want to look at before I can completely close the book on this one. In order to do that, I have to open the book on this one.
You want to talk about things I've had in my Amazon wishlist that I put there to keep out of the way instead of buying it? This thing has been there for the longest out of everything I've ever had there. I recently actually bought it and decided to give it a read, and it's definitely one of the weirder reads I've ever had, and one of the weirder ways to experience MGS1. There's a lot of points where random things are inserted into the story, and odd elements such as Snake speaking with Mantis. "Be your worst, you circus freak," Snake shouted as he zigzagged through the room. "Did they leave your cage in the sideshow unlocked, Mantis? Don't you miss living with the geeks?" Or Snake's first impression of Ocelot being, "Central casting could use him for the role of General George Custer in a community theatre production of the Battle of the Little Bighorn." What the fuck? There's a bunch of weird things in here, the weirdest being when Snake randomly reflects on the 9/11 attacks. I'll not spend too much time on this, so I'll just leave you with my favourite line in the book. With that, Metal Gear emitted an ear-splitting roar, as if it were a dinosaur from the long-lost world. My god, Snake thought, they even gave that thing sound effects.
The second thing I wanted to take a look at is one of the bigger things when it relates to Metal Gear Solid, and that is Metal Gear Solid The Twin Snakes on the GameCube.
I'm not going to go too into it here because the game runs exactly like Metal Gear Solid 2, so the gameplay is inherently different, but I'm not going to go into it here, so I'll save that for the next review. What I will say, however, is that it breaks the game in half and becomes incredibly easy with the fact that the MGS2 engine has first-person view aiming, which MGS1 wasn't designed around. Alright, with Twin Snakes, some things are tougher, some things are so much easier, but the most drastic change is to the cutscenes. My god, the cutscenes. Someone in the production team had a big hard-on for the Matrix or something, because this shit is over the top, ridiculous, and downright fucking funny. There's a few cutscenes I want to bring special mention to. There's basically all the scenes with Grey Fox, everything with Psycho Mantis, the scene just after the fight with Sniper Wolf, that fucking Stinger missile jump, the moment where Snake runs headfirst to fight Rex, Ocelot in the torture room, one of the weirdest over-the-top scenes I've seen with Snake's gun, but of course, most of all, the craziest cutscene of all has got to be when Baker forgets Meryl's codec.
Sorry, I forgot.
What the fuck, man? Speaking on the characterization for a bit, someone must really fucking hate Otacon, because my god, they just shit on him at every turn. In codec, in cutscenes, someone fucking went out of their way to do this. The voice acting has been completely redone, with David Hayter giving up most of his pay to get nearly everyone back to return to their roles, but if I'm being honest, while the voice acting is good, Campbell sounds flat out fucking bored at times. It feels like there's a lot more moments where there's not as much realism or emotion put behind the voice work like the original was. Or that might just be nostalgic bias though. One thing I noticed particularly is that she sounded very much like she was reading from a script, and there wasn't a lot of realistic pausing between the people talking. It was just an absolute instant response. Certain bosses feel different. Ocelot, Jesus fuck, he never fired a single shot, he was so easy. The tank is easier, just a bit longer. The Rex fight, well, it's way too easy in my books. The Raven fight was basically the same, however. The fight with a ninja is a tad harder, and Mantis is a little tougher because after a while, he'll begin to read multiple controller ports. I'm a massive fan on the things they do to avoid backtracking, however. You can retrieve a PSG-1 much earlier. The temperature changing sequence is quicker due to there being pipes in the room where Rex is being held, allowing you to save so much time. The default control scheme is a bit funny too. Let me show you what I mean. The thing that tripped me up the most is how my muscle memory on the button mapping for MGS 1, 2, and 3 worked on the PlayStation interfered with the fact that I was using a GameCube controller. The action button is the top button for both controllers, which wasn't an issue to get around, but the fire and the choke button for the PlayStation is to the left, but for the GameCube, it's in the middle. The punch button for the PlayStation is on the right, but on the GameCube it's on the left, and the crouch button is moved to the right on the GameCube. So the amount of times I went to punch someone only for me to kneel down in front of them was fucking embarrassing, and you can't change this. Other than that, it's still the MGS1 we all know and love, warts and all. Although the price tag for this is mostly in the high range. I got my copy for £55 or $72, so if you really want to try this, be aware of the price. And finally, the last thing I want to look at is the digital graphic novel of MGS1 included in the PS3 Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection. This digital graphic novel is animated completely with voice acting, retelling the events of MGS1 in a completely new way. For instance, like the fact it's more styled like a movie with knowledge that it's not a game. There's a bunch of cool things they do with this in terms of choices they made for story purposes. My favourite has got to be when Master Miller shows the fuck up out of nowhere during Snake's fight with Mantis, shooting him dead. Then Miller and Snake go all the way to where fucking Rex is being held, only to be surprised by Liquid and Ocelot with Meryl hostage. Yes, that's Miller and Liquid in the same room. But out of everything from this sequence, the thing that Snake notices which snaps him out of it is that Ocelot has both his hands, leading Snake to realise that it's all a trick from Mantis, like, who the fuck comes up with this shit? We also get a behind the scenes look at things like, you ever wonder what the Foxhound unit were doing when Snake was fucking about? We even get to see things like Sniper Wolf forcing Meryl to watch Snake be tortured. It is definitely one of the most interesting ways of experiencing MGS1, and I actually highly recommend it.
So, Metal Gear Solid. What else can I really say? It's probably the biggest turning point for the Metal Gear series up until this point. It was the first Metal Gear game that everybody knew about. Where the original MSX games can be seen as like cult classics or hidden gems, this game will be forever seen as a masterpiece. I don't think there's a better message in this game other than your life is your own and find your purpose and go live it. I think that pretty much wraps up this video. Sorry about the length. I did say I was going to be going in on detail on these ones, but didn't expect this long, but here we are.
Metal Gear Solid continues to be a mind-blowing experience, and a truly wonderful gaming experience at that. And I can always go back to this with the knowledge of, I'm going to have a good time. Can I recommend this game? Don't you know the answer at this point? Even if a stealth game isn't something you've ever played before, I would say if you're at all curious, pick this game up. Try it. It's available physically, digitally on PS3 and Vita, so you have no reason not to pick it up. I fucking love this game, okay?
Round the corner, probably the video game that is consistently more and more relevant as the years go on, and the game with the plot that is probably going to kill me trying to summarise it. The sequel to Metal Gear Solid 1, Metal Gear Solid 2, Sons of Liberty, and I will be looking at that game on the Metal Gear Solid Legacy Collection. So until then, I want everybody to stay safe, wash your hands, wear a mask if you decide to go outside, and also, most importantly, have a good one.
Hey there everyone, going off script for the credits again. Stay till the very end for some bloopers with me and Dan. I will say those shots were filmed before the first UK lockdown was implemented, so don't worry about all that. I just want to say a quick thanks to everyone who helped with this video. My big brother Chris, who was the one who introduced me to the Metal Gear series in the first place. My best friend Dan, who shot those scenes with me. He's always been a big help. And of course my wonderful fiancée Megan, who I would crash and burn without. I want to say sorry again for the length, and I'm really sorry about the noise in my audio. I have since purchased a new mic, which I am using right now, which isn't a load of shit, and things will be sounding a lot better from the future. So with all that said, I've been Keiran, and enjoy the bloopers.
How you doing today?
Oh, pretty swell. How are you?
I'm doing good. Nice to meet you, man. Yeah, thanks. So fucking weird.
What?
Oh my god, you don't have a hand! Fuck you. We're recording. Hiya! I'm gonna get a hiya! Can you not be yourself for 5 minutes? Okay. You were planning that, you bitch.
I only have good science.
Me
hoy Minoy!
Get on top of me, Dan.
Yes, son.
Thank you, father. What are you doing, step bro?
Trying to kill you!
Yay!
I couldn't go outside because my bone marrow was thin.
I couldn't go outside because I was full of COVID-19.
Come.
I hope the ice cream man sees this.
I like how there are minions and Disney princesses on it. That's fine, just sit right there. It's not
I really hope there's a fucking like Thanos on it or something.
the best Disney princess.
Right, let's have a look-see of how my friend is killing me. Ow. Anthony!
You want me to fuck you?
You want me to fuck you?
Full service, just like Susan.